It was our anniversary, and I rushed home to surprise my wife, but when I pushed open the door, the first thing I saw was a naked man. My wife screamed, yanked up the comforter to cover his face, and spread her arms to shield him. It happened already. I'm warning you, don't do anything stupid. Hitting someone is against the law. If you touch him, I'll sue you. The gifts and flowers in my hands felt like they weighed a ton. She couldn't see the surprise I'd painstakingly prepared. She was only focused on helping her lover deal with me. Looking at this pair of lovebirds, I laughed and adjusted the position of the hidden camera on my chest. You're right. Let's talk this through then. If she wants to be promiscuous, I'm more than happy to let go. Besides, with a video as proof, I doubt she'll be able to take away my assets. On the wedding bed I bought with my own hands, there lay a man and a woman. The woman was my wife, the man I didn't recognize. He was holding Chelsea Miller, sound asleep. My mind went blank, and I mechanically turned on the light, waking the two in bed. The man sat up and, seeing me, immediately shrank back under the covers. Chelsea Miller opened her sleepy eyes and immediately grabbed the blanket to cover the man tightly. She looked at me warily, her hands raised. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? If you'd said you were coming today, I wouldn't have asked Chad over, so you wouldn't be so embarrassed. Her eyes were calm, and she looked at me with a clear conscience, as if I were the one who'd done something wrong. The flowers and gifts I was holding crashed to the ground, and my heart ached like it was being stabbed with needles. She probably forgot that today was our anniversary. I wanted to give her a surprise, so I rushed over. I didn't expect to be interrupting her date with someone else. How ridiculous! On my anniversary, I was the one being cuckolded. Taking a deep breath, I asked weakly, "So, how do you want to resolve this?" Chelsea Miller threw back the covers and said gently, "Don't be afraid. I won't let him hurt you." This scene was a brutal assault on my brain. What did I want to do? My bottom line was infidelity, let alone seeing them lying in the same bed. The two of them even had the nerve to be affectionate in front of me. I clenched my fists, and Chelsea Miller, seeing it, screamed, "John Smith, what do you think you're doing? I'm warning you, hitting someone is against the law. If you touch him, we'll hold you responsible." So, it turned out that I, the rightful and legal husband, was the outsider. My anger vanished, replaced by helplessness. "Get him out of here, and then we'll talk." I spat out the words and slumped down at the door. Chelsea Miller glanced at me warily and threw back the covers. The man stood up and calmly began to put on his clothes. I saw the bright red hickeys on his chest. Chelsea Miller stood in front of the man the whole time, gently reassuring him, "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you. You go back first. I can handle this with him. I'll contact you later." The man put on his clothes and prepared to leave, but before he left, he grabbed Chelsea Miller's hand. "Call me the second anything happens. If he dares to lay a hand on you, I'll call the cops immediately." I chuckled bitterly. What a touching love story. I was the villain. After the man left, Chelsea Miller stood in front of me. "John Smith, you saw everything. As you can see, there's someone else in my heart. We've been apart for so long, and we're both tired, aren't we? That's how feelings get worn down." Was it? I looked at the flowers and gifts on the floor. If I was really tired, why would I have driven for hours, carefully preparing gifts, just to come and spend our anniversary with her? I'd been preparing this surprise for a long time, even attaching a hidden camera before I came in, just to record Chelsea Miller's happy smile. Unfortunately, the camera didn't record Chelsea Miller's smile, but the disgusting scene of the two of them sleeping together. "John Smith, what are your thoughts? Let's cut our losses. Let's find a time to divide the property and part ways amicably." I looked up in shock. She cheated on me and still had the nerve to ask for money? I couldn't help but remind her, Chelsea Miller, you cheated on me. She chuckled. So what? Where's the proof? I silently touched the hidden camera on my collar. The proof, of course, there was proof. But were we, after so many years of marriage, really going to make such a scene? While I was hesitating, Chelsea Miller stood up, grabbed the purse I gave her, and headed for the door. You think about it. I won't be back tonight. It didn't take a genius to know that she was going to see that man. I stopped the hidden camera's recording and downloaded the video. Like a masochist, I watched it over and over again. After pausing the video, I got up and looked around the bedroom. This apartment was where Chelsea Miller lived after her job transfer. The two towns weren't far apart, and I often came to see her when I had time, afraid she'd be lonely. At first, she was happy, but gradually, she started turning down my requests to meet. I've made new friends. Don't worry about me. What are you doing here again? I'm busy. I'm going out to dinner with friends. Next time. I'm busy. No, I'm working overtime lately. Don't come this week, okay? I suddenly understood why Chelsea Miller had been rejecting me. On the cabinet, there was a photo album, our love story with Brad. After reading it carefully, I finally knew what she'd been doing every time she turned me down. She was dating Brad. I felt like a complete and utter fool. I was so good to her, never missing flowers and gifts for holidays, sending midnight texts/calls, and sometimes when she said she was in a bad mood, I'd rush over just to give her a hug. I thought sadly, why did I have to find out on our anniversary? Maybe T was all destined. You can't hide the truth forever, it will come out sooner or later. Or, if Chelsea Miller had been good at hiding it, she could have kept me in the dark until the divorce. Rather than being kept in the dark, I'd rather have a clear understanding. Like now. Chelsea Miller and I had only been living apart since last year. At that time, she was transferred to this town for work. Before we parted, Chelsea Miller asked me worriedly if I would find another woman while she was gone. I smiled and reassured her for a long time, making all sorts of promises. I would definitely come to see her whenever I had time. At the same time, I cheered her on and encouraged her to be mentally prepared to welcome a new job and a new life. Although I didn't really believe in long-distance relationships and felt uneasy, how could I bear to let Chelsea Miller give up her passion? I kept my promise and drove back and forth between the two towns every weekend, rain or shine. But later, that frequency gradually decreased. Chelsea Miller said she wanted me to rest. Looking back now, that wasn't concern, but alienation. I thought I really needed to rest. Being apart was exhausting. Chelsea Miller was tired of hiding it, and I was exhausted from various responsibilities. All the big and small matters of both families had to be handled by me. But after working hard every day, I could only return to an empty home. Didn't men need someone to lean on too? I sincerely hoped that someone would keep a light on for me. I never complained to Chelsea Miller about these things. Now she was telling me that being apart was tiring and that there were no more feelings between us. I laughed self-deprecatingly. If it wasn't for love, why would I have done all this? I couldn't say what I was feeling inside. It was incredibly complicated. It wasn't just sadness, but more of a sense of sorrow. On the coffee table, there was a picture frame. Inside was a picture of Chelsea Miller. It was a solo SH. OT, only her, not me. Perhaps I had been excluded by her long ago. I just hadn't realized it. I took one last look, stood up, and left Chelsea Miller's apartment. It was after 2 in the morning when I finally drove back to our neighborhood. This was the first home Chelsea Miller and I bought, and we designed all the decorations together. but she hadn't lived there long before she was transferred to another town and now had her own place. I pushed open the door, took off my coat, and sat on the sofa, lost in thought. What should I do now? The rest of my life, as I had imagined it, was now gone. The phone suddenly rang. It was Chelsea Miller calling. After hesitating for a moment, I pressed the answer button. Chelsea Miller's indifferent voice came through the receiver. Driving back this late? Aren't you tired? Why didn't you just get a hotel? I was silent, not saying a word. She continued, don't tell Mom and Dad about us yet. I'll go back when I have time, and we'll talk properly. Since her transfer, Chelsea Miller had only come back during the new year. I always silently hoped that she would want to come back and find me, to stroll down the streets we used to walk, and visit the park near our home. But I never thought that the only exception would be when she came back to talk about marriage. Okay. With a bitter heart, I hung up the phone, tried to calm myself down, took a shower, and went to bed. I stared at the wedding photo on the wall, unable to sleep all night. When morning came, I took it down, carefully packed it away, and put it in the storage room. I kept my promise and didn't mention anything about Chelsea Miller and me to anyone. I wouldn't take the initiative to send Chelsea Miller messages of concern, and she didn't contact me either. The already distant relationship became even more like that of strangers. In seemingly normal days, I couldn't help but reminisce. Actually, Chelsea Miller had said a lot to me that night. But at the time, I was distraught and couldn't hear clearly. However, those memories were etched in my heart. Looking back on them later, every word was crystal clear and deafening. John Smith, let me tell you, the most important thing in a relationship is the feeling. You're not like my lover at all, just a teammate to live with. It's so boring. You're old-fashioned and worldly, and you don't understand what I want at all. I'm tired of it. It's really uninteresting. We women need more than just a man who's mature. The right amount of childishness can provide more fun. Brad is very special. He can satisfy all my kinks. But you can't. You just can't. After calming down and looking at Chelsea Miller's words, she was right. We didn't act like lovers at all. I could only guess at her current life from the words in our chats, but I wasn't entitled to know the whole picture. As a result, I couldn't offer much considerate care, and she never stood in my shoes to think about life's problems. I was old-fashioned because my family needed stability and wouldn't allow me to take risks. I was worldly because the pressures of life forced me to learn to be frugal. Chelsea Miller could quit her job and pursue her passion, but I had to stay here, burdened with car loans, mortgages, and insurance for both sets of parents. I thought that if I carried the burden, I could make her life easier and more enjoyable. But I didn't expect that such sacrifice would distance us. Perhaps facing pressure together is what gives you the motivation to go further. There were many ornaments and decorations in the house. All of them were made by Chelsea Miller and me, carrying beautiful memories from our passionate days. At that time, she loved to do handicrafts and couldn't help but pull me down to sit whenever she saw a stall on the street. Perler beads, clay paintings, hand-painted plaster. Chelsea Miller was skilled and always made them very delicate. But I could only make a rough version and then hand it over to her for finishing touches. Therefore, she often laughed at me for not being able to learn. We had made so many things. I spent a whole day cleaning the entire house. The next day, I packed all of Chelsea Miller's belongings and had a moving company send them directly to her current address. That night, Chelsea Miller called me. Her voice was furious, and she started accusing me as soon as I answered. John Smith, you've gone too far. Was this necessary? Faced with the questioning, I was puzzled. What's wrong? Are you throwing a tantrum? Trying to make me look bad? Her tone was awful. So much stuff, so late. Where am I supposed to put it all? Making a mess of things, trying to cause me trouble, aren't you? I'm busy with work, tired of life, and don't have time to mess around with you. I found it ridiculous and hung up the phone, not wanting to waste another word, letting her think whatever she wanted of me. Whether she suspected me or despised me. Complaining about work and life? Wasn't that all her own choice? Actually, Chelsea Miller had two choices back then. To stay in her original position, living her original life, or to go to the company's new branch, where she might have a chance at a higher position. She chose the latter, and as a result, she stopped asking about anything at home and left it all to me. Looking at it now, she was pretty selfish. It's just that love blinded me and made me ignore the unfairness in this relationship. After letting go, I could see clearly. It had been 2 weeks since our encounter on Valentine's Day. Chelsea Miller chose a weekend to come back. She looked impatient and rang the video doorbell like crazy. Beside her, Brad was gently comforting her. Seeing this scene through the video doorbell, I was a little surprised. Bringing her current boyfriend to discuss divorce with her current husband? Wasn't that a bit too outrageous and absurd? I could almost imagine how angry Chelsea Miller's parents must be when they heard the gossip, and how disappointed my parents must be. But she didn't seem to have considered any of that. I suddenly didn't want to talk anymore. If we were going to get a divorce, we could just go to City Hall. What was she doing, bringing an outsider back? Trying to embarrass everyone? The phone rang. John Smith, did you change the door lock code? What do you mean? Isn't that a little too much? No matter what, I'm still the mistress of this house. Actually, I didn't change the code. The reason Chelsea Miller was entering it wrong was probably because I was the only one opening and closing the door, and she rarely came back, so she forgot. As for the key to the keypad lock, she had no idea where she lost it long ago. Serves you right. Bring your lover, and let's talk outside. Neighbors were coming and going, and gossip was bound to spread. Mr. and Mrs. Miller had never done me wrong, and I didn't want to spread the news about Chelsea Miller's affair. There was no need to embarrass them, and I didn't want to lose face myself. Unexpectedly, Chelsea Miller's reaction was even more intense than mine. Who are you calling a lover? Watch your mouth. I could hear Brad's voice from the other end of the line. Why is this person talking so rudely? No manners at all. You said he had a bad temper before, and I didn't believe you, but now I see it's true. Luckily, you broke up with him, or who knows what would have happened in the future. I almost laughed in anger. You guys did it yourselves, and you're not letting others talk about it? Having the best of both worlds, wanting to take all the advantages, aren't you? Doing shameless things, and acting shameless. You guys are truly invincible. It was the first time I had spoken to Chelsea Miller so sharply, without any concealment. She didn't seem to expect me to be like this and was momentarily stunned. I gave her an address and hung up the phone. People really should be a little more selfish. No longer worrying about Chelsea Miller's dramatic feelings, keeping up the so-called gentleness, it felt really good to directly fire back. Soft music played at the lounge, and I sat in a corner by the window. When Chelsea Miller arrived, Brad came with her. I didn't know how she had been slandering me behind my back, but he sat down with a defensive posture. The look on his face seemed to say, "Don't be afraid, Chelsea. If this jerk dares to lay a hand on you, I will protect you." Whether we were dating or married, I had never let Chelsea Miller do any chores. Laundry, cooking, cleaning, I did it all myself. Could it be that she had secretly slandered me as a domestic abuser? Using this self-deceptive method to gain moral peace of mind. How ridiculous. Chelsea Miller took out the divorce agreement from her purse and said bluntly, "Sign it. We're over." I picked up the agreement and read it carefully. If you feel it's not appropriate, I can have a lawyer revise it, but don't drag out this divorce. Chelsea Miller said coldly with a frosty face, I've had enough of you. Weren't we going to talk about it? I put down the agreement, my face expressionless. Chelsea Miller sneered and frowned. Is there anything left for us to talk about at this point? John Smith, do you have no dignity at all? I don't love you anymore. Please stop bothering my life. Brad chimed in, Mr. Smith, we're both men. Being cheated on isn't exactly honorable, is it? As he spoke, I could sense the undisguised pride in his eyes. He treated Chelsea Miller like a trophy worth showing off. Sign this agreement as soon as possible, and when you tell others about it later, you can say that you just had irreconcilable differences and chose to divorce, not because of something else. He smiled. So you don't become a laughingstock. After speaking, Brad kissed Chelsea Miller on the cheek triumphantly. Besides shameless, I really didn't know how else to describe this pair of dirty lovers. Chels. E. A. Miller threw the pen in front of me, impatiently. John Smith, I have no interest or time to waste on you. Sign it quickly. It's better for both of us. When the time comes, if I file a divorce lawsuit, you'll have to get divorced whether you want to or not. I took a sip of the strong liquor in my glass. Are you guys misunderstanding something? When did I say I wasn't getting a divorce? I put down the glass, and the ruby-like liquor inside shimmered slightly. A small lamp sat on the corner of the table, emitting a warm orange glow. The light was dim, and I stared at Chelsea Miller's face, unable to find any trace of what she used to be like. Time could change many things, to the point where a person becomes completely different. With a slight sigh, I opened the divorce agreement. Ms. Miller, I just have some disagreements with the terms of the agreement. The only reason I want to talk more is because of that. Although this matter can be handled by a lawyer, I still think it's better for us to discuss it face to face. After a pause, I continued, ever since I caught you doing your dirty deeds on Valentine's Day, I decided that we were over. I have my pride. How could I possibly try to salvage this? You're just flattering yourself. These words were unreserved and made Chelsea Miller's face look a little ugly. After all, I had never ridiculed her like this before. And these were all facts, which made it impossible for her to refute them. She could only try to remain calm in order to maintain her composure, putting on a pretense of sneering. Chelsea Miller's tone was unpleasant as she retorted, I had a lawyer draw up the agreement specifically. What disagreements could you possibly have? Brad couldn't help but chime in, that's a professional lawyer. How could a layman like you find any loopholes? Ridiculous! Don't make trouble for no reason and pull any tricks. Sign it quickly, so you don't look like a clown. Hearing this, I couldn't help but cast a glance at the spectacle, secretly doubting Chelsea Miller's standards for choosing a partner. Could a man who was so easily flustered and only knew how to show off really give her the future she wanted? They always say that love makes people blind, and women are extremely emotional creatures. Now it seemed that it was indeed true. Raising my finger to point at the open agreement, I looked directly into Chelsea Miller's eyes and said, the reason for our divorce isn't some emotional breakdown, but your unilateral infidelity during our marriage. Therefore, I do not agree to a 50-50th split of the assets. You won't get a single cent of our shared property. You must leave with nothing. As soon as these words came out, Chelsea Miller and Brad were both stunned. It seemed that they had never imagined that I would bring up this matter. Otherwise, how could they have appeared in front of me so brazenly? Recalling their intimate actions, I felt like laughing. The video from the video doorbell at home, as well as the recording of this conversation, had all been documented by me. If I were to file a lawsuit later, they could all be used as ironclad evidence of Chelsea Miller's affair. For a man, Is being cuckolded embarrassing? It could already be considered the ultimate humiliation. If this matter were to spread, the comments would definitely not be pleasant. But there was no way I could accept Chelsea Miller taking my money and spending it on another man. Since we got married, Chelsea Miller had spent as much as she earned each month. Designer purses/handbags, lipsticks, cosmetics. She always only cared about herself, while I had to shoulder all the household expenses. In addition to that, I also regularly deposited money into our savings account as insurance for our retirement and old age. These were all savings that I had slowly accumulated on my own. How could I let Chelsea Miller effortlessly take half of it just because of a light divorce agreement? There's no such thing as free lunch. Chelsea Miller frowned tightly and said in a low voice, "John Smith, what do you mean by this?" I smiled and said, "Didn't I make it clear enough? I can accept a divorce, but you have to leave with nothing." Seeing that my attitude was firm, her face became even more ugly. "You also know that I was just transferred to a new position last year. Everything is just starting, and I'm not living that comfortably right now. After so many years of relationship, do you really have to treat me this way?" This matter involved principles and reality, and there was no way I could back down even a little. But listening to Chelsea Miller's words, I couldn't help but laugh. What about these years of relationship? We've already reached the point of divorce. How you live has nothing to do with me. Chelsea Miller was so angry that she couldn't speak, and Brad put his arm around her. "Don't be angry, Chelsea. We don't need a man with no magnanimity. From now on, I will be your support. No matter what happens, I will take care of you." He gave his promises with certainty, but they were just empty words. Who can't say sweet nothings? How many actually follow through? But Chelsea Miller just fell for it. She blinked her eyes and held back her tears of grievance. "Chad, you're so good." As she said this, Chelsea Miller glared at me with extreme disgust. "You're right, we don't need a man like this. So what if you have a little money? Don't be so self-righteous." "I don't care at all." When she said these words, she probably didn't think about how much money she had spent over the years of our marriage. When we were discussing marriage, how could she have had the nerve to ask me for a dowry of a significant dowry, without even talking about a dowry? Through this conversation, I completely saw Chelsea Miller for who she was. When many things shed the outer cloak of emotion and become linked to reality, all that's left is ugliness. Now, I only feel grateful we didn't have any children. In that regard, I have to thank Chelsea Miller. No matter how much our parents urged us, she always put it off, claiming that she wasn't mature enough and didn't have the confidence to be a good mother. That's when I realized that Chelsea Miller was too playful. But I naively thought that she was just playful and ignored the fact that she wasn't considering the future at all and didn't plan to give herself a stable life. Watching Chelsea Miller and Brad being lovey-dovey, my desire for revenge took over, and I couldn't help but say some killjoy words. "You're her support? Do you know how much her lipstick costs? She gets tired of it in a few days. Do you know how much her purse/handbag costs? She changes it every few months. Do you know how much she earns each month after being transferred over there? And how much she has to ask me for in subsidies?" At this point, Brad looked blank, like a clueless kid. After all, Chelsea Miller wouldn't mention these expenses to him. I had always been the one bearing them. Why? Looking back on it now, I laugh at myself. Was it worth it to give so much for love? I soon found the answer to that question in my heart. Love is worth it, but Chelsea Miller isn't. Brad already looked a little hesitant, wishing he could take back what he had just said. Chelsea Miller's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. She said in a low voice, "John Smith, are you trying to prove something by saying all this? Don't you just think that I owe you something? How much money? I'll pay you back, okay? I couldn't hold back any longer and pointed at her nose, shouting, "You do owe me. Can you afford to pay it back? Go back and calculate it properly. How are you going to pay back every debt?" Chelsea Miller glared at me through gritted teeth, grabbed Brad's hand, and left without saying a word. I sat in my seat, raised my glass, and drank it all in one gulp. Then, I lit a cigarette that I hadn't smoked in a long time. I inhaled the smoke into my lungs and felt incredibly refreshed when I exhaled it. I really should thank Brad for letting me see Chelsea Miller's true colors. There's nothing to regret about cutting ties with this kind of woman. I only feel lucky. How many years of youth does she have left to squander? When she's old and haggard, what will she have to be proud of? Serve her right. The next morning, Mr. Miller called me to ask about the situation between Chelsea Miller and me. Not wanting to upset the old man, I just said that we were living apart and had irreconcilable differences, which eventually led to divorce. Mr. Miller sighed deeply and said to me, "John Smith, I know these years haven't been easy for you, and I feel guilty that Chelsea Miller's burdens have all fallen on your shoulders." My emotions were complex, and I replied earnestly, "Mr. Miller, this is what I should bear as her husband. Since you've made up your minds, I won't say much more." After a pause, Mr. Miller said, "But I still hope you'll consider it carefully. After all, so many years of affection are not easily come by." He didn't know the whole story, so of course he would try to persuade us, and I simply said, "I will reconsider." Take care of yourselves, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. This was probably the last time I would face them as their son-in-law. Hanging up the phone, the waves in my heart still refused to calm. I still remember the first time Chelsea Miller brought me home, carrying large and small gifts, sweating and looking awkward. Mrs. Miller greeted me warmly, while Mr. Miller spoke to me at length about topics between men. I couldn't understand it then, but I kept every word in my heart, so I could always be vigilant. Every girl is her parents' most beloved princess, and they deserve to be loved. Chelsea Miller was too. But from now on, the person accompanying her wouldn't be me. However, I would still conceal her affair. Not because I wanted to play the NIC guy, but because Mr. and Mrs. Miller didn't deserve that from me. They'd even taken good care of me over the years. So how could I, as a younger generation, bear to make things too difficult for them? It was unreasonable in every way. Chelsea Miller and I would handle our own affairs. Ironically, while I was still considering the Miller family, I received a summons from the court. Chelsea Miller was dissatisfied with being left with nothing and had filed a divorce lawsuit. On matters of principle, I would certainly not back down, and I contacted a lawyer immediately, presenting all the evidence I had. The lawyer accepted the materials and assured me, "Mr. Smith, these videos are sufficient to prove Ms. Miller's infidelity during the marriage. This lawsuit cannot possibly be lost. You can leave it to me with confidence. Do you have any other requests regarding the divorce ruling?" So, I discussed the relevant matters with the lawyer. The moment I walked out of the law firm, I couldn't describe what I was feeling. I really couldn't understand why Chelsea Miller had to make things so difficult, embarrassing both of us. The people entering the firm had different expressions, most of them preoccupied. I stood on the side of the road, muttering to myself, "Why bother?" Days passed, and the day of the court hearing arrived. The lawyer organized all the materials and went to the courthouse with me. In court, I saw Chelsea Miller again. I hadn't seen her for a while, and she looked very haggard. Even with makeup, she couldn't hide the large dark circles under her eyes and her tired face. Unexpectedly, Brad didn't come with her. Had they argued? In any case, he was Chelsea Miller's partner now. Moreover, Chelsea Miller and I had reached the point of divorce because of him. Considering all of Brad's behavior, he was clearly an unreliable and irresponsible man. Vaguely, I could guess some things, but they were no longer relevant to me. First, Chelsea Miller and her defense. Essie lawyer spoke, recounting how difficult she was and how much she needed to divide the marital property equally. But when my lawyer presented my deposit records, it showed how much I had contributed to this family. And when he presented evidence of Chelsea Miller's infidelity during the marriage, the lawsuit was essentially decided. After the judge sorted everything out, I undoubtedly won. Receiving this result, Chelsea Miller's already haggard face turned even grayer. She was ordered to leave with nothing. So many years of marriage, she gained nothing but the passage of time. As things stood, I had nothing to say to her. After collecting the relevant documents, I said to her as I walked out of the courthouse, "Take care of Mr. and Mrs. Miller, they've had it tough." After saying that, I prepared to drive away. Just as I was about to close the door, I noticed Chelsea Miller chasing after me. I frowned and asked, puzzled, "Is there anything else?" Chelsea Miller stood by the car, her hand unconsciously fidgeting with the strap of her purse/handbag, looking somewhat uneasy. She forced a smile and asked me, "John Smith, are you free?" After thinking about it, I really didn't have any plans, so I replied truthfully, "I am now. Why?" Chelsea Miller forced the corners of her mouth up, her expression slightly sad, and said in a muffled voice, "Can you take me around one last time?" I wanted to refuse. I didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. A failed marriage, ending in this way, was really ugly. Chelsea Miller looked into my eyes, her eyes brimming with tears, and said softly, "Just consider it a farewell." I paused, falling silent. Yes. No matter how many years of affection, no matter how much we gave, we would never have any connection again from now on. Thinking of this, I was still a little dazed, feeling empty inside. Farewells between adults often mean a lifetime. Even if the separation wasn't graceful, it didn't prevent us from giving this relationship a proper goodbye. Calming my thoughts, I took a deep breath and said, "Get in the car." "Where do you want to go?" I asked Chelsea Miller in the passenger seat. She thought seriously for a while, then replied with a wry smile, "I don't know. Can we just drive around?" I nodded and stepped on the gas. Along the way, Chelsea Miller looked at the scenery outside the car window, occasionally talking about things. All of them were about past memories. For example, when passing the entrance of a shopping mall, she would talk about what happened to us in this mall. Which store we'd shopped at, which restaurant we'd eaten at, or which store we'd played in. Funny or embarrassing things, she remembered them all. It was just that she hadn't talked about them for so long that she seemed to have forgotten them. While chatting, I couldn't help but fall into reminiscence, smiling and agreeing a couple of times. The tension between us was no longer so sharp. At least, many memories were only known to us, and only we could talk about them in the whole world. We could still laugh and joke, as if none of this had happened. Maintaining a semblance of decency, completing the farewell. Unconsciously, I drove to our Hillcrest High. This was where Chelsea Miller and I met. After not returning for many years, it had been renovated. Just looking at the exterior, it was almost unrecognizable. "Ah, it's changed so much," Chelsea Miller said with emotion. "It said that after we graduated, the school's synthetic track was finally completed, and all the desks and chairs in the school were replaced. I really envy our younger classmates." I looked at Chelsea Miller's profile, my eyes quite complicated. To me back then, she was just that good-looking and smart girl in the next class. She seemed to notice, turned her head. "Why are you staring at me?" I touched my nose and changed the subject. "Many schools are like this. The good stuff is always for the next class." After saying that, I pushed open the car door. "Let's get out and walk around. I'm a little tired from driving." Chelsea Miller followed me out of the car, her purse/handbag in tow. "Wait for me." We came to the small restaurant where we used to have lunch. The auntie was still the same auntie, her smile still kind. I guess she probably didn't recognize us anymore. After all, year after year, class after class, there were so many students. I ordered the food and sat at the table waiting, while Chelsea Miller went up to greet her familiarly. "Auntie, long time no see, how come you haven't aged at all?" The auntie was stunned for a moment, then smiled. "Are you a student from Hillcrest High? Which year? What's your name?" Auntie might still remember. Listening to them chat, I couldn't help but smile along. For half the afternoon, Chelsea Miller and I visited many places. As the sun set, night fell. Chelsea Miller murmured with some regret, "Why is it so late already? There are still so many places we haven't been to." "Yeah, there are still so many places," I murmured along. "Many things we only regret after we lose them. People always say cherish, but what counts as cherishing? No matter how we treat it, time will always pass. I think enjoying the whole process with a normal heart is already cherishing it." Chelsea Miller and I both fell silent, but the atmosphere in the car wasn't too heavy. It was more like a calm after the flowers and leaves had fallen. The night scenery flashed past outside the window. Compared to the daytime, it was hard to see clearly now. Even if we stared, we could only see a blur of traffic. After driving for a while, I parked the car next to a slightly older neighborhood. "We're here." Chelsea Miller sat quietly in the passenger seat for a while, then pushed the door open and got out. She stood outside the car door, opened her mouth, looking like she wanted to say something but swallowed the words back. I knew what she wanted to ask, and she knew how I would answer. Some words are better left unsaid. I looked into the neighborhood, at a house lit with warm-toned lights. That was the home of Mr. and Mrs. Miller. After Chelsea Miller went back, she would probably explain the situation. Sighing softly, I said to Chelsea Miller, "I didn't tell Mr. and Mrs. Miller about your affair. We're divorcing simply because of irreconcilable differences." Chelsea Miller was stunned, her eyes quickly turning red. Her lips were pressed tightly together, forcing back tears, and she choked out, "Thank you." "You're welcome. Go home early." After saying that, I rolled up the car window and drove away as Chelsea Miller watched me go. After passing the corner, her thin figure could no longer be seen in the rearview mirror. I didn't let myself look back. I kept going forward. Some things, when they're over, they're over. Since I'd decided to move forward, I definitely wouldn't look back. Because looking back would bring regret.